Good afternoon, and thank you very much for coming. Welcome to the National Press Club and another National Press Club Afternoon Newsmaker News Conference. My name is Peter Hickman. I am a former U.S. Information Agency Foreign Service officer, now a freelance writer and editorial media consultant, and a member and past vice chairman of the club's Newsmaker Committee. And before introducing this afternoon's speakers, let me make the ritual announcements. One is that this news conference is being recorded, as they all are, as the newsmakers are all recorded. Members may access the audio file through the website of the club using their membership number, and others may purchase a copy of a CD-ROM from the club's Broadcast Operations Center on the fourth floor of this building. And you can reach them at 202-662-7510 or boc@press.org. Second, follow my good example and turn off any little noisemakers that you have like this. What's the latest thing, an iPod or a Peapod or something? For the duration of the news conference. Three, there are some material outside related to this news conference. I think most already have it. And there are other newsmakers and events coming up at the club, and they're on the website, and we hope you can come to some of those too. And finally, if you haven't signed in when you leave, when you arrive, please sign out when you leave. As you know, our newsmakers this afternoon are Mr. Mohammed Nakibur Rahman, who's my far right, who is the son of Bangladesh opposition leader Motiur. Is that correct? I got it spelled right, Asim, this time. Motiur Rahman Nizami, and Mr. Toby Codman on my immediate right, an international war crimes attorney from the UK. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Very glad to have you here. And I also want to welcome back to the NPC the person who originally proposed and helped arrange this newsmaker with Mrs. Rahman and Kadman, Mr. Asim Ghafoor, standing in the back, modestly sitting in the back row. Thank you. Thank you very much again. Well, as I think you all know, today is the National Day of Bangladesh, the 41st anniversary of the country's independence. And our newsmakers have chosen this day to discuss questions concerning the current International Crimes Tribunal in Bangladesh against certain political figures' alleged involvement in war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide since 1971. Mr. Rahman's father is being prosecuted in the tribunal in what his son considers false charges, and Mr. Codman is an advisor to the accused in the tribunal and has said he wants to focus world attention on real war crimes and not what he calls political witch hunts, which is what he says is taking place in this tribunal. So after our newsmakers speak, they will take your questions, and please let them know your name and affiliation when you ask them. And when you do have a question, if you'll give me a signal of some sort, I'll call on you in turn with priority to club members and accredited journalists, and as many of you as our time permits. We have an hour. And finally, just to repeat, if you didn't sign in, please sign out. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, who's going to go first? Mr. Rahman. Reverse alphabetical order.
Thank you, Peter. Toby, and respected members of the media, hope you are having a wonderful afternoon. It's a beautiful day out there, isn't it? First of all, let me just clarify that I'm not a politician. I keep a distance from politics. So I have no interest in discussing political points at all today. I'm not a lawyer either, so I will not be talking about different legislation of war crimes tribunal either. I will simply be talking about my father because I'm afraid his life is in danger. He, along with his colleague, is facing worst possible kind of persecution by the current Awami League government in Bangladesh. I'm here to talk about my father, who is an extraordinary human being. I had the opportunity to see my father from very close. All my 34 years, we lived very close except for the last few years. And I can honestly say without a blink of an eye that I have never seen anybody in my life. I can undoubtedly say that. I've never seen anybody in my life as polite, as humble, as soft-spoken, as considerate, and as kind-hearted as my father. I have seen my father spending sleepless nights worrying about other people's welfare. I have seen my father living a very simple life, you can't imagine even that my father doesn't even own a car. That's how simple we live back home in Bangladesh. Let me share a few stories, just a few incidents that would help you understand my father a little better. If you have ever met him, I can guarantee you that you have never seen him being angry at all. There was just one time I saw him getting angry. That was back in 1993. That time I was taking my school certificate exam. Back home, that's probably the biggest exam of your life. That was a cold night in 1993. We used to live in a small little apartment, and my parents could see my bedroom lights on or off. So basically, at night, they could tell whether I'm studying or not by looking at whether my lights are on or off. And I'm not a studious type. So a lot of times I choose to put my lights on and go back to bed, hoping that my parents would figure out that I'm actually working hard. So one night I was doing that. I just went to bed with keeping my bedroom lights on. And all of a sudden I hear my dad just trying to wake me up. And I look up and I see that he's holding a glass of milk. And at that time, we didn't have microwave ovens. He woke up in the middle of the night, used those gas burners, warmed up the milk, warmed it up, hoping that he would find me studying. And I was really embarrassed. I could see that he's totally angry. But all he said to me is that, "Are you serious?" That's all. That's as angry as he can get. And this kind of person is being tried for human rights violation. Just to share how he gets along with people, he was sworn in as Minister of Agriculture in 2001. And when he got inducted as a minister, it's customary for people, it's customary that the minister on his first day of office is welcomed by the secretary of the ministry. And at that time, the Secretary of Agriculture Ministry was Dr. Ayub Qadri. If you don't know who Dr. Ayub Qadri is, he's a very famous bureaucrat. He was one of the last few remaining CSP officials of that current government, and he was a famous freedom fighter. And because of that, he had some reservation with working along. So he actually chose not to welcome my father on that day. And he actually told his colleagues that he doesn't feel comfortable at all working here, and he doesn't know how he's going to get along. Fast forward 3 years later, when my father was given another portfolio, he was transferred to Ministry of Industries. So there was a farewell function, and at that function, Dr. Ayub Qadri was in tears. In that farewell ceremony, he simply said that, in tears, that I have never met anybody so humble in my life. I've been a bureaucrat for 35 years, and I never actually got along with anybody else in my life so well. I actually was supposed to retire last year, but I chose not to retire because I wanted to spend the rest of my life working with Mr. Nizami. And alas, couldn't have happened. And later on, Dr. Ayub Qadri actually couldn't work with anybody else. He was actually, again, transferred to my father's ministry later on, and he retired as a Secretary of Industries later on. And in 2008, he was also advisor to the caretaker government. My father is a peace-abiding citizen. If you want to look for a poster child for law-abiding citizen, my father is one. He never breaks any kind of laws. Before 2008, when Awami League government came into power, there has been not a single charge, case, or report in any police station or any court against my father. His record was crystal clear. But all of a sudden, when this government came to power in 2008, all sorts of charges started to come up, manufactured by this government. starting from blasphemy, sedition, starting from obstruction to justice, just name it. Just in few days, all kinds of charges started to come as if somebody opened a floodgate. And in 2009, he was arrested on a charge of blasphemy from the press club, National Press Club of Bangladesh. And since then, later on, war crimes charge was placed and so many other charges were placed. And this 70-year-old person, my father is 70 years old when he was arrested, now he's 72. Police asked for indefinite detention, and he was taken to custody, he was taken to remand, and he was placed in a room, it's kind of like a cube. And there were 200 watts of light placed in front of his face 24 hours. He couldn't sleep for months. Government just didn't stop harassing him by depriving him or denying medical attention. They kept on moving him from one jail to another. Right now, he is kept in a jail far away from the capital city. It's in a district called Ghazipur. My mother and sister, who pretty much goes every week to visit my father, they are also harassed. He was denied proper visitation. My mother had to wait for hours. Sometimes she couldn't manage to see my father. And it was not just limited to denying visitation. My family members were also targeted. They were also part of this government vengeance. My brother, who keeps, all my brothers, we do keep safe distance from politics, who was working in a government medical college at that time. He was a talented surgeon, orthopedic surgeon. His room was vandalized. He was physically assaulted. He had to leave the country. Now he lives in Australia. My 22-year-old brother, who is just a kid, he was on his last semester, graduating semester in Malaysia, and his passport was about to expire last November. When he applied for renewal of passport, it was denied. And that was his final semester. He couldn't go back home. He was about to graduate in 1 month. University authority managed to keep him in the university for a month, but after that, it has been 4 months. We filed petition in the court. It has been 5 months. There is no response yet. My brother is basically a stateless person right now, just stranded in Malaysia. Not only that, anybody who came to aid was harassed. Mr. Toby Codman is here. He was also harassed. He was denied entry in the country, and he was harassed by those immigration officials in Bangladesh. Anybody who demanded release or demanded mistrial or demanded any sorts of justice in the country were brutally beaten up in public. No sorts of demonstration were allowed. So far, to date, almost 10,000 people were arbitrarily detained for this cause. Close to 10 people were killed, and many are missing. And as I said, I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand the legal definition of crimes, but I know for sure that my father is innocent. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that. If you just follow the proceedings of the so-called International War Crimes Tribunal, you'll see that this is a big joke. They're staging a world-class comedy in that tribunal, starting from bringing in eyewitnesses who were not even born in 1971 to all sorts of other things. You will even see the judge acting as a prosecutor, correcting the prosecutors and asking them to bring different charges. This is totally ridiculous. Actually, I took the time to read the charges that were framed against my father. It's a 4,000-page charge. And I invite all of you to read that. I can guarantee you that you will not find any crime committed by my father. It is all based on he said, she said, I heard from him, I heard from her, all those things. I read in that, I read in this. It is basically 4,000 pages of document based on, this is basically a 4,000-page fact-finding without any fact. As I said, the judge is acting as a prosecutor in this regard. And basically, we are afraid that they can hand out death penalty, specially designed and prosecuted by current government. In fact, the chairman of the ICT actually suggested during this hearing that the prosecutor should be bringing murder charges against my father. This is suggested by the judge. So just imagine where it is going and what kind of justice we will get from here. I'm inviting all of you to just and go a little further. This independence war, which we are all proud of, took place in 1971. But up until 1988, you will not find a single report or any sorts of discussion or any sorts of name calling on my dad, on my father, until 1988. You'll not find any news or anywhere until 1988. What happened in 1988? My father was the Secretary General of Jamaat Islami in 1988, and he became relevant. And as soon as he became relevant, all kinds of stories started to come out in those pro-Awami League newspapers and literatures. And government prosecution and ICT is using all those news reports as evidence, which, by the way, is dated not 1971. Those are dated after 1988. So basically, what I want to say is simply, I would leave the legal aspect to be discussed by Taubi. I would like to leave here just to put this matter to your conscience. Would you let an innocent person face death penalty? What would you do if it were your father? Let the truth be heard. Thank you very much.
Mr. Roma, could I ask you?
Sure.
Two questions just to clarify for me, others may know. Did you say you were afraid the death penalty will be applied or might? Does Bangladesh have the death penalty?
Yes, and government is asking. Government prosecution is asking for death penalty, yes.
And the other thing I didn't hear, in 1988, your father was Secretary General of what?
My father became Secretary General of the party,
Oh.
Jamaat Islami, which he is the chief right now.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.